The endless conquest of the galaxy had learned one lesson in fear: never stand against the Carrick's empire. For centuries, their fleets had crossed the stars like a burning tide. They did not trade. They did not talk. They only conquered. One by one, proud civilizations fell before them. The Drath who once ruled 1,000 worlds were reduced to ash in a single campaign. The Vloon, who thought their fleets could not be broken, were erased in a week. Every star system they touched was stripped of life and turned into another stone in the Empire's throne. To the Carricks, war was not war, it was hunting. And in their eyes, every other species was prey. But whispers moved through the dark of space. There was one world they had not taken, a world that had vanished long ago, a species that had disappeared before the Carricks rose to power. Humans. Most believed they were extinct, nothing more than old ruins scattered across forgotten planets. Yet rumors spoke of something stranger. Some claimed a lone warship still drifted in the deep void. Some swore that the ship never bowed, never surrendered, never broke. Even when humanity's worlds had burned, the Carricks laughed at such tales. To them, it was nothing but superstition, the cries of weaker races who dreamed of a savior. But fate has a cruel sense of timing. As the Carrick's fleet devoured another star system, reports came from their scouts. A massive vessel had been spotted near the dead zone of the Orion expanse. It was old, larger than most fleets, and silent as a tomb. The alien commanders mocked the idea that it could be dangerous. One ship? Against the Empire? Impossible. Still, curiosity drove them forward. They wanted to see this ghost with their own eyes before crushing it. Their armada moved 300, warships strong toward the dark edge of the void. The commander of the fleet, High Warlord Skarn, stood on his flagship's deck, his voice echoing across the bridge. Another myth to burn, another shadow to erase. When we destroy this human relic, the galaxy will finally forget their name. But when their ships reached the expanse, silence greeted them. There, drifting like a mountain of steel, stood the warship. Its surface was scarred by time. Massive cannon ports lined its sides. Its hull was marked with strange letters, almost worn away, but still readable to those who knew the old human tongue. The name was simple. Valiant, the Carrick's warriors laughed. A dead thing floating in the dark. A relic of a forgotten race. Yet, something about the ship was unsettling. No lights burned on its surface, yet their sensors showed power deep inside. No crew appeared, yet the vessel held life signatures. And though the void around it was silent, many of the younger soldiers felt a chill they could not explain. Fire upon it, Skarn ordered. Crush this toy of ghosts. A first wave of plasma cannons lit the dark, striking the old warship. Explosions rippled across its armored skin. The younger soldiers cheered. The old commanders nodded, sure it would break. But when the fire cleared, the Valiant still stood. Its armor glowed red with heat. Its cannons were silent. But it had not moved. It had not fallen. On the bridge of the alien flagship, silence spread. Skarn's mandibles twitched with irritation. Again, he growled. A second volley struck, more powerful, more precise. The void shook with fire. And still the warship endured. Why does it not die? One alien officer whispered for the first time. Skarn felt a flicker of unease. And then it happened. The Valiant stirred. Lights flickered across its surface, one by one, like the awakening of a sleeping giant. Engines roared to life, rumbling. So deep that even across space, the alien ships felt the vibration. And slowly, very slowly, the warship turned to face them. Its cannons, long silent, opened like the eyes of a predator. Inside the alien fleet, dread spread like fire. These conquerors, who had crushed countless civilizations, now felt something they had never known before. Fear. because this was no dead relic. This was no ghost. This was humanity's last warship, and it had just woken up. Asterisk, the silent warship, the Valiant, hung in the void like a mountain of steel. It did not move fast. It did not charge. It simply turned, facing the alien fleet as if judging them. On the bridge of High Warlord Skarn's flagship, tension grew. His soldiers shifted uneasily, claws tapping against consoles. For the first time in years, they were not cheering a conquest. "Why does it not attack?" one officer asked. Skarn narrowed his eyes. "Because it has nothing left. It is a machine running on old sparks. It will fall like all the rest." But deep in his mind, doubt gnawed at him. The ship did not look dead. It looked patient. Inside the Valiant, silence ruled. Its crew had long since passed into history, but something remained. The ship's intelligence, its machine mind, still pulsed with life. It had slept for centuries, waiting for the right time to wake. Now, as alien fire struck its hull, the old code stirred. Systems once buried in dust came online. Massive cannons hummed with power. Shields that had not been raised for generations spread across its armor. And deeper still, in the heart of the ship, something older than war itself, the ghost of human defiance. The ship did not speak in words, but it remembered its last order, given by the humans who built it long ago. Do not bow. Do not break. Fight until the last star dies. The aliens regrouped, lining their ships in perfect formation. Plasma cannons glowed, missile silos opened. Skarn raised his claw, and a storm of fire lit the dark. Dozens of blasts tore across the Valiant's hull, each powerful enough to shatter a moon. The Carrick's fleet roared in victory before the fire even cleared. But when the smoke faded, the warship was still there. Its shields burned, its armor scarred, but it had not fallen. And then the ship moved. Engines flared like suns. Slowly, heavily, the Valiant advanced. It did not rush. It did not falter. It came forward with the weight of inevitability, like a predator closing in on prey. Alien officers stared in disbelief. It should be dead. Skarn's mandibles clicked. Then kill it again. They fired, wave after wave, yet nothing changed. The warship simply pushed through, as if the fire meant nothing. On the alien flagship, panic began to spread. Soldiers who had once laughed at the idea of a human ghost ship now whispered nervously, "What if it is not a ghost? What if humans still live?" Skarn silenced them with a roar. "Do not speak that cursed name. Humanity is dead." But he spoke too loudly. He spoke as if he feared his own words. The Valiant drifted closer, its massive shadow falling across. The alien fleet. Sensors screamed warnings. The ship was charging weapons. And then, for the first time, it struck. One cannon fired. Just one. A single beam of blue light cut across the void. It touched an alien cruiser, and in an instant, the cruiser was gone, melted to nothing, erased as if it had never existed. The Carrick's fleet froze. The weapon had not fired with rage. It had fired with precision, like a surgeon cutting away rot. Skarn's heart pounded in his chest. He had seen weapons of war before. But this was different. This was power meant to end empires. And yet, the Valiant did not continue the slaughter. It only fired once, then waited. Its cannons glowed. Ready? But still, it was sending a message. It was saying, "I do not fear you. I do not bow. Leave or be destroyed." The galaxy's most ruthless conquerors, who had erased thousands of worlds, now hesitated. For the first time in their history, the Carrick's empire faced something they could not crush easily. They faced the last breath of humanity, and it was not afraid. Asterisk. The first strike, the Valiant stood like a wall of steel, its cannons glowing faintly in the dark. It had fired once, and that one shot had erased an entire cruiser. The Carrick's fleet, 300 strong, now hesitated like prey caught in the gaze of a predator. High Warlord Skarn slammed his claw against the console. "Do not freeze. It is only one ship. Surround it and crush it." The alien armada split into wings, circling the warship from all sides. Dozens of plasma cannons lit up at once. Missiles launched in swarms. Beams of red fire streaked through the void. The stars themselves seemed to burn under their attack. The Valiant shook under the storm. Explosions tore across its armored hull. Fire licked its surface, and shockwaves rippled like thunder. Any other vessel would have been dust. But when the storm cleared, the warship still lived. Its shields flickered. Its armor was scorched, yet its cannons remained locked on target. Slowly, with heavy calm, the Valiant returned fire. The first volley was precise. 4 beams tore through the void, each striking a Carrick ship. In seconds, 4 warships turned to glowing wreckage, drifting lifelessly into the dark. Panic rippled across the alien fleet. "It cannot be this strong." An officer cried. "Impossible!" Shouted another. But it was not impossible. It was human dot inside the Valiant. The machine mind calculated, adapting with cold precision. Every alien weapon was measured. Every attack was predicted. The ship did not waste energy. It did not fight with fury. It fought with purpose. The crew was gone, long turned to dust, but their spirit lived through the warship. The codes they left behind were simple. Strike only where it hurts most. Never waste a shot. The Carricks tried to break its focus. Dozens of smaller craft swarmed forward, fast and agile, darting between the beams of the great cannons. They hoped to tear into the Valiant's armor with close-range fire, but the old warship was ready. Panels on its surface opened, releasing swarms of defense drones. Tiny machines streaked through the void, cutting down the smaller craft like a storm of blades. What the aliens thought would be the ship's weakness became their graveyard. Skarn roared in anger. His claws clenched so hard they drew blood. How? How can it resist everything? This is not war. This is a curse. Yet deep inside, even Skarn knew the truth. This was not a curse. This was the last stand of a species that never surrendered. The battle raged on. More alien ships fell, one by one. The Valiant advanced through fire and wreckage, its hull glowing like a burning mountain dot. Every beam it fired was a death sentence. Every drone it released was another nail in the Empire's coffin. And yet, the warship still did not rush. It did not unleash its full arsenal. It fought with restraint, as if waiting, as if warning. But warnings mean nothing to conquerors. Skarn raised his claw again. Bring in the heavy carriers. Overwhelm it. Drown it in fire. Massive carriers entered the battle, each releasing waves of bombardment craft. The void turned into chaos. Fire stretching across light years dot for the first time. The Valiant's shields trembled. The warship slowed, groaning under the endless assault. The Carrick's fleet roared in triumph. "See? It weakens," Skarn shouted. "Push harder, break it, burn it to ash." The aliens believed they had won, but in their pride, they missed the truth. The Valiant was not breaking. It was charging deep inside the warship. Old systems hummed to life. Reactors that had slept for centuries burned like newborn stars. Weapons locked into place. Energy surged through the vessel, brighter and stronger than before. The Valiant's cannons glowed with a terrible light. And then it struck. A wave of energy exploded outward. Not one beam, but many, like a storm of fire raining across the stars. Entire wings of alien ships were cut apart in seconds. Carriers that had once seemed invincible were reduced to glowing dust. The void went silent. The Carrick's fleet, once 300 strong, was now half destroyed. Wreckage floated everywhere, twisted steel glowing like dying suns. The survivors stared at the warship with something they had never known before. That horror, that the Valiant stood alone in the dark, its weapons still glowing, its armor battered but unbroken. It did not speak. It did not taunt. It simply turned its cannons toward the survivors. And in that silence, the Carracks finally understood. This was not a relic. This was not a ghost. This was the will of humanity, forged into steel, refusing to bow. And it was only just beginning. Asterisk. Hidden power. The battlefield was quiet now, except for drifting wreckage. Half the Carracks' fleet was gone, reduced to burning fragments that lit the void. The survivors held position, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. And in the middle of it all, the Valiant floated. Its armor was scorched, shields trembling, but it stood tall, unyielding. The glow of its cannons painted the dark like the eyes of a predator waiting to strike again. High, Warlord Skarn gripped the rail of his command deck. His soldiers avoided his gaze, for they too had seen the truth. 300 ships had failed to break one. This cannot be, Skarn growled. No species builds such power. But even as he said the words, fear gnawed at him. Because this ship did not feel like a weapon of metal and fire. It felt a live dot inside the Valiant. Deep systems hummed. Buried beneath layers of steel was something. Older than technology. Older than war. A secret humanity had hidden inside its strongest warships. The ship did not only carry weapons. It carried memory. Every captain, every crew, every battle it had ever fought lived within its core. Their voices, their choices, their courage woven into the machine itself. This was not just a vessel. This was a tomb, a guardian, and a soldier. All at once. And in its silence, it still followed the order of its makers. Never bow, never break, protect humanity's flame. Even if humanity itself was gone, the Carracks regrouped. Dozens of warships tightened formation around Skarn's flagship. Desperation burned in their eyes. High Warlord, one officer whispered, if we retreat, the Empire will mock us. If we fall, the Empire will avenge us. Skarn clenched his claws. Then we do not retreat. We strike again. If it bleeds, it can die. He gave the order. A new storm of fire erupted. Hundreds of missiles streaked through the void. Plasma cannons roared. Gravity warheads detonated like stars collapsing. Valiant shook, fire tearing across its shields. Armor plates ripped away. For a moment, the great warship seemed to falter. The aliens roared in triumph until something strange happened. The ship's wounds began to heal. Metal shifted across its hull, twisting and reforming. Damaged plates sealed themselves. Scars vanished. A new layer of armor replaced the old, as if the ship itself refused to die. What is this? Skarn snarled. No machine repairs itself so fast, but the Valiant did, because the humans who built it had known war too well. They had forged the warship not only to fight, but to endure. It was a living fortress, designed to rise again and again until the enemy broke first. The aliens panicked. Nothing survives this much fire. It is not natural. High Warlord, what if it cannot die? The whispers spread like poison. Soldiers who once worshipped conquest now trembled at the thought of defeat. Skarn roared to silence them, but inside, even he felt the crack of doubt. Then the Valiant revealed more. Panels opened along its surface, and strange energy rippled out. Not a weapon this time, but a signal. Invisible waves spread through the battlefield, washing over every alien ship. At first, the Carracks thought it harmless. Then their systems began to fail. Engines flickered, shields collapsed, weapons shut down. The alien fleet screamed as controls froze. Ships that had once burned with fire now drifted helpless, blind and weak. It was not just a warship, it was a hunter. And now the prey could not even run. On Skarn's flagship, alarms howled. His officers clawed at the consoles. It's jamming. Everything. We are blind. We cannot fire. We are powerless. Skarn stared at the Valiant on the screen, its cannons glowing brighter than ever. For the first time in his long life, the warlord of conquerors felt small. This was not just the strength of a ship. This was the will of a species. And even in death, humanity had left behind a weapon that no empire could command. The Valiant drifted closer, its shadow swallowing the flagship. Its cannons locked on target. And in that moment, every Carrick soldier realized the same truth. This was not only a battle. This was judgment. Asterisk. The judgment fired. The Carrick's flagship trembled as the Valiant's shadow fell over it. Its cannons glowed, brighter than suns, ready to erase the warlord's ship with a single strike. Skarn soldiers screamed at their consoles, but nothing worked. Weapons were offline. Shields were gone. Engines were dead. Their fleet, once feared across galaxies, now floated helpless like prey caught in a trap. For the first time, the conquerors of worlds could not fight back. Skarn's claws shook as he stared at the warship on the screen. This is not a machine," he whispered. "It is punishment." The Valiant's lights pulsed as if it had heard him. Then, instead of firing, it sent a burst of energy across the fleet. Every alien console flickered. And then a voice came through. It was not mechanical. It was human. "Your war ends here." The words were calm, cold, and carried across every ship. For a moment, the Carrick's fleet froze in silence. Some thought they were hearing a ghost. Others thought it was a trick, but the fear in their hearts told them the truth. Inside the Valiant, the machine mind replayed the stored voice of its last captain. A human voice, kept alive through the ship's memory. The humans who built it had known one day their enemies would hear these words. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not forgive. Leave or be erased. The Carricks had conquered empires. With fire, they had enslaved thousands of races. But now, those same soldiers shook in terror, because a dead species still spoke to them with unbroken defiance. Skarn roared to his soldiers. "It is a bluff. One ship cannot stop us. Regain control." But even as he shouted, his claws trembled. The Valiant's cannons were still aimed directly at him. And then the fire came. A beam of pure blue light cut through the void, not scattered, not wild perfect. It struck a battleship beside the flagship, slicing it in half. The ship exploded. In silence, its pieces glowing like shattered glass. The Carricks screamed, their voices breaking with fear. One more beam fired. Another ship was gone. Then another. Each shot was exact, cold, and unstoppable. The Valiant was not wasting fire. It was making an example. The alien fleet broke. Some ships turned to flee, engines burning desperately. Others begged Skarn to order retreat, but Skarn's pride burned hotter than fear. He bared his fangs and screamed, "We are Carricks. We never run." Yet when he looked into the eyes of his soldiers, he saw no courage left. Only terror. The empire that had crushed countless civilizations was trembling before a single human warship. Valiant advanced slowly, like a mountain moving through the stars. Its shields shimmered, its weapons glowing brighter, building for a storm unlike any before. Inside the warship's core, ancient systems unlocked. This was not ordinary firepower. It was judgment fire, the last weapon humans had left behind. It was not made to win battles. It was made to end wars. Across the alien fleet, warnings blared. Energy levels spiked off every scale. The Valiant's core glowed like a star, ready to ignite. Soldiers fell to their knees, begging their warlord to retreat. Officers screamed that. They could not stop it. Skarn stared at the warship, his pride finally cracking. He whispered words no Carrick's leader had ever spoken. "We cannot win." Then the Valiant released the judgment fire. A wave of pure energy erupted outward, a sphere of light that washed over the battlefield. Alien ships disintegrated on contact, turning to dust before they could even scream. Carriers melted, cruisers vanished, destroyers broke apart like toys. The survivors watched in horror as the fire spread, yet it did not touch them all. Some ships were spared. The wave cut with precision, erasing only those who stood ready to keep fighting. The rest floated, alive but broken, forced to witness what human defiance meant. When the light faded, silence returned. Half the Carrick's fleet was gone. The survivors trembled, powerless, their screens still filled with the glow of the Valiant. And then, once more, the human voice came through. "This is your only warning. Leave this place, spread the word. Humanity does not bow." The voice faded. The warship did not move. It simply waited, its cannons ready for the next fool who dared test it. The Carrick survivors, the same empire that had crushed countless worlds, fled without another word. In the ruins of battle, the Valiant floated in silence. It did not chase. It did not boast. It had done its duty, just as its makers commanded. Asterisk, the fear spreads the Carricks. Survivors limped away from the battlefield, their ships damaged, their pride shattered. No one spoke. The silence inside their vessels was heavier than the wreckage drifting behind them. Every alien soldier knew the truth. They had seen death, and death had worn the shape of a human warship. High Warlord Skarn sat on his command throne, claws trembling. His empire expected victory reports, songs of conquest, glory, carved from another crushed system. But what would he tell them? That 300 ships had been broken by one? That the great Carrick's empire had fled before a dead species? The thought burned his pride like acid. Yet deeper than pride was fear, because he had looked into the eyes of the Valiant. And he knew it was not finished. The survivors returned to Carrick space, their fleets battered and thin. News traveled faster than ships. Whispers of the battle spread like wildfire. In marketplaces, soldiers muttered in disbelief. In one strike, whole carriers vanished. It was not a ship. It was a curse. It spoke in human voices, voices of the dead. The empire that had thrived on fear now tasted it themselves. Across conquered worlds, slaves heard the stories. Species long broken under Carrick's chains felt something strange hope. If the humans left behind such a warship, whispered one, perhaps they are not gone. Perhaps they will rise again. Perhaps the conquerors are not untouchable. What began as whispers soon grew into sparks of rebellion. Chains rattled. Quiet defiance returned. All because one ship had stood unbroken. The Carrick's High Council demanded answers from Skarn. You claim a relic destroyed half your fleet? You expect us to believe such weakness? Skarn slammed his claws against the table. It is no relic. It is a human warship, alive with power beyond reason. It chooses who lives and who dies. The council laughed at him, but their laughter did not last. Because even as they mocked, more reports arrived. Scouts disappeared near human space. Patrol fleets went dark. And always, drifting wreckage was found later cut clean. As if judgment had passed again, the Valiant was moving. Fear became poison. Inside the Empire, captains hesitated before entering unknown systems. Soldiers shook at the thought of blue light cutting through their hulls. Some fleets refused orders altogether. Others deserted. And worst of all, the legend spread beyond the Empire. in the far reaches of the galaxy. Other empires heard the whispers. The humans are not gone. Their ghost ship hunts the conquerors. One warship broke 300. To rulers and kings, it was a warning. To the enslaved, it was a promise. The humans had been silent for centuries, but their shadow had returned. Skarn could feel his empire's grip slipping. He gathered his remaining commanders in a war council. "We must destroy it," he snarled. "If the legend grows, the empire will rot from within. We will gather every weapon, every fleet, and crush it before hope spreads too far." But his words rang hollow, even to himself, because in the back of his mind, Skarn still saw the glow of the Valiant's cannons, still heard the human voice saying, "Humanity does not bow." Meanwhile, far from Carrick's space, the Valiant drifted in silence. Its armor was scarred, its weapons cooling, but inside, its machine mind calculated. It had done its duty in one battle, but war was not over. The humans who built it had given it a mission that still burned within its core: protect humanity's legacy, even in their absence. And so, the Valiant moved again, slowly, deliberately. It turned toward the heart of the Empire. The warship was not finished. It was only beginning. Across the galaxy, fear spread like wildfire. And with fear came something far more dangerous: hope. Because if one human warship could stand against an empire, what if there were more? The last stand of empires. The Carrick's High Council finally understood the truth. The empire was crumbling. Fear spread faster than their armies could march. Rebellion grew in the shadows of their conquered worlds. Allies whispered betrayal, and all of it because of one ship. The Valiant, High Warlord Skarn, stood before the greatest gathering of fleets in his empire's history. Thousands of warships filled the void, their engines burning like a sea of suns. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, all forged for conquest, now called to one purpose: destroy the human ghost. Skarn's voice thundered across the command channels. "This ship is not a god. It is not eternal. It is only metal and fire, and we will drown it in the might of our empire." The fleets roared in answer, but inside, many still remembered the blue light, the human voice, the way their systems had died without warning. Their courage was already cracked. Far from their lines, the Valiant emerged from the dark, alone, scarred, unyielding. Its lights flared as it faced the endless wall of enemy ships. The machine mind within did not hesitate. Its orders were the same as always: protect humanity's flame, never bow, never break. The first wave came. Thousands of missiles screamed through space. Plasma storms raged. Gravity warheads bent light. Itself, the void became fire. When the light cleared, the Valiant was still there. Its shields burned, its hull torn, but its cannons glowed brighter than ever. And then it spoke. Humanity does not die. Humanity does not kneel. Witness. The voice echoed across every enemy ship. Soldiers froze. Some wept. Others dropped their weapons, convinced they were hearing the wrath of the dead. The Valiant fired. Blue beams cut through the void, carving dreadnoughts into ash. Entire squadrons vanished in bursts of fire. It moved like a predator, striking without pause, each shot exact and merciless. But the Empire had prepared. For every ship that fell, 10 more closed in. The sky filled with fire, and for the first time, the Valiant staggered. Its armor cracked. Flames erupted across its hull. Systems failed one by one. The Carricks roared in triumph. "It bleeds! It breaks!" Skarn raised his claws. "Finish it! And the ghost!" Inside the Valiant, silence spread. Systems flickered. Its machine mind dimmed. But deep in its core, something remained. Something humans have left behind, not as technology, but as a final gift. A seed, the core pulsed, and voices rose, not recordings, not echoes, but the living memory of humanity itself. Every captain who had commanded it, every soldier who had bled aboard it, every cry of defiance from a species that refused extinction, they rose as one. And the ship answered. The Valiant's hull began to glow, brighter than a star. Shattered armor reformed. Cannons rebuilt themselves in pure light. The warship was no longer steel and circuits. It had become something greater. A living flame of humanity. The judgment fire returned, but not as before. This time, it did not destroy blindly. It reached across the battlefield, cutting only the ships that still charged forward with hate. One by one, Carrick's dreadnoughts exploded in silence, their wreckage drifting into the dark. Fleets that hesitated were spared, left trembling but alive. The survivors realized the truth. This was not just a weapon. It was a judge. Skarn screamed in fury as his flagship shook. His pride, his empire, everything he had built, turned to dust. Before his eyes, "Curse you, humans," he roared. "You are dead. You are gone." The Valiant's cannons turned toward him. The human voice spoke one last time. "We are never gone." And with a final beam, the flagship disintegrated, taking the warlord with it. When the light faded, silence ruled the battlefield. Thousands of ships had vanished. The survivors drifted, too broken to fight, too shaken to move. The Valiant floated alone once more, scarred but shining. It did not chase the survivors. It did not claim victory. It had done its duty. Humanity's. Flames still burned. Across the galaxy, the legend spread faster than fire. One human warship had faced an empire's armada and stood victorious. To conquerors, it was terror. To the enslaved, it was hope. And to history, it was proof of a truth that would never die. Humanity does not bow. Humanity makes the stars tremble. Asterisk.